Property values in Biddeford have been climbing at a fast rate over the past several years, as transformation in the community has led to properties selling at overall higher prices. This trend has been seen all across southern Maine over the past few years because the region has become an increasingly desirable place to own homes or rent. The Maine Constitution requires property taxes to be assessed equally according to the just value thereof. In other words, it is the responsibility of the municipal assessor to adjust property value to meet this constitutional requirement. Maine law requires the ratio between overall municipal assessed values and sale prices to be within 70% to 110% of just value. And if we are unable to meet those standards, the state requires municipal assessors to adjust properties. The assessing department performed a market adjustment in 2021. Property values have continued to soar, and we needed to complete another market adjustment in 2022, which you will see reflected on your next tax bill. Assessed values across the city increased over 16.5% on average this year. A market update makes sure that all property owners are contributing their fair share of property taxes. Property values change over time, but not all types of properties change at the same rate. If your home's value has stayed the same while another resident's property value has increased, we want those changes to be reflected when we calculate your tax bill. A market update will also ensure that all residents receive statewide property tax exemptions, such as the Homestead Exemption in full. The state of Maine has set standards for exemption amounts in order to ensure exemptions are being applied fairly throughout the state. In order for our residents to get exemptions applied in full, the city needed to increase property values at a minimum of 14% on average across the city. If we did not make any valuation adjustments this year, Biddeford would only qualify for 81% of full state reimbursements. Also, assessed value and sale price ratios would fall below the state's 70% minimum of just value standards. One thing to keep in mind is that a market update doesn't mean that the city is collecting more revenue. So it won't change the total amount of taxes that need to be collected to fund the budget. Before the market update, we would have expected that the tax rate would have been $18.88. But this rate decreased to $16.41 to take into account the higher property values after the market adjustments. The market update is simply a tax shift, so the balance of who pays what portion is more fair and equitable as it relates to the current market, not a way to generate new revenue. Reimbursements for exemptions, like the Homestead Exemption, are based on the tax rate. With higher property values, the tax rate is lower, and the total amount of reimbursement from the state decreases. Factoring this in, along with 3.57% in budget increases, the impact on the average tax bill for this year is 4.24%. Any property that experienced the average change in property values, 16.67%, would see a net change of 4.24% in their tax bill. If an individual property's increase in value was greater than 16.67%, the FY23 tax bill would see more than a 4.24% increase. If the increase in value is less than 16.67%, the individual bill would see less than a 4.24% increase. The COVID-19 global pandemic has led to societal changes that have changed the needs we have for the places we live and work. Residential properties have consistently experienced overall greater demand citywide, which in turn has led to property value increases for residential properties. On the other hand, the uncertainty of the pandemic has created different levels of supply and demand for the various types of commercial properties. In turn, commercial property values have been more inconsistent. In an effort to create a fair and more equitable tax base, funds have been set aside to hire a revaluation firm to complete an in-depth analysis of commercial property values for fiscal year 2024.